comes from confronting the past, understanding it, and integrating it into who you are. Simba had to face the ghost of his father and the guilt from his childhood to finally become the king he was always meant to be. In the end, Simba's victory isn't just about taking back the throne. It's about restoring the philosophy that Scar tried to destroy. When the rains return to the Pride Lands as Simba ascends Pride Rock, it symbolizes a cleansing. It's the washing away of a dark, selfish era and the rebirth of community, responsibility, and the circle of life. The legacy of Simba and Scar is a powerful reminder that true strength isn't about power or dominance, but about courage, responsibility, and the willingness. Isn't just about a good lion versus a bad lion. It's about two sides of the same royal coin. A story of what it means to lead, to fail, and to find one's place in the great circle of life. Let's start with the rightful heir, Simba. When we first meet him, he's a cub full of life, bursting with curiosity and a touch of arrogance. He can't wait to be king. This phrase isn't just a catchy song. It's his entire worldview. To him, being king means doing whatever he wants, going wherever he pleases, and having everyone bow down to him. He sees the power, but not the responsibility. This naive perspective is what Scar so masterfully exploits. Simba's early days are a lesson in the dangers of entitlement without understanding. He's born into greatness, but he hasn't yet earned it. His father, Mufasa, tries to teach him about the delicate balance of the Pride Lands, that a true king's power lies in what he gives, not what he takes. But these are lessons a playful cub can't fully grasp. Then, tragedy strikes. The stampede, Mufasa's fall, and Scar's venomous words. Run away, Simba, run away, and never return. This is the pivotal moment that shatters Simba's world. Scar doesn't just kill the king. He orphans the prince and poisons his mind with guilt. Simba flees, carrying a burden that no child should ever have to bear. He believes he is responsible for his father's death. This guilt shapes the next chapter of his life, leading him away from his destiny and into a life of blissful ignorance. Enter Timon and Pumbaa, the masters of Hakuna Matata. No worries. It's the perfect philosophy for a runaway prince haunted by his past. In their jungle paradise, Simba grows from a guilt-ridden cub into a powerful, carefree lion. He eats grubs, laughs, and completely forgets who he is supposed to be. This period is crucial. It's Simba's escape, his refusal to face his trauma and responsibility. While it seems like a happy existence, it's a life built on avoidance. He's alive, but the future king of the Pride Lands is dormant, buried under layers of no worries. This phase highlights a very human tendency. When faced with overwhelming pain, it's often easier to run and forget than to turn and fight. Now, let's turn our attention to the architect of this tragedy, Scar. Scar is one of Disney's most compelling villains because he's not just evil. He's intelligent, charismatic, and deeply insecure. As the younger brother of Mufasa, he was born in the shadow of the king. The movie hints that he was given the name Scar after an incident, forever branding him as damaged. He sees himself as intellectually superior, believing he has the lion's share of brains, but he lacks the physical strength and regal presence of his brother. This brews a potent cocktail of jealousy and resentment. Scar's desire for the throne isn't just about power, it's about validation. He feels cheated by genetics, by fate, by the system that puts Mufasa and then Simba ahead of him. His alliance with the hyenas is a brilliant strategic move. He empowers a marginalized, scorned group, promising them a future where they will never go hungry again. He speaks their language of grievance and exclusion. This makes him more than just a tyrant. He's a revolutionary in his own dark way, leading an uprising of the disenfranchised against the established order. His methods are deplorable, but his motivations are rooted in a deep-seated feeling of being wronged. While Simba lives by Hakuna Matata, Scar implements his own philosophy. If Simba's is about avoiding responsibility, Scar's is about seizing power without it. Under his rule, the Pride Lands wither. The delicate balance Mufasa spoke of is destroyed. Scar allows the hyenas to overhunt, and the once lush savanna turns into a barren wasteland. This is the critical difference between him and Mufasa. Mufasa understood that the king and the land are one, that leadership is stewardship. Scar sees the kingdom as a resource to be consumed. He has the crown, but he has no concept of how to rule. He's a king of destruction, not creation. His reign is a stark illustration that gaining power and wielding it wisely are two very different things. The turning point for Simba comes with the arrival of Nala and the wisdom of Rafiki. Nala represents the reality of the Pride Lands, a world suffering under Scar's tyranny. She challenges Simba's carefree lifestyle, reminding him of his duty. But it's Rafiki who truly forces him to confront his past. The scene where Rafiki leads Simba to the water's edge is profound. "Look harder," he says, as Simba sees not his own reflection, but his father's. Then, Mufasa's spirit appears in the clouds with that unforgettable line. "Remember who you are." This isn't just a ghostly vision. It's Simba's own conscience, his buried identity, finally breaking through the surface. He realizes that running from his past won't change it. To honor his father, he must embrace his destiny. Simba's return is not just a physical journey home. It's the culmination of his emotional and psychological growth. He is no longer the naive cub or the carefree adolescent. He has experienced loss, guilt, and avoidance, and has finally chosen responsibility. When he confronts Scar, he's not fighting for power or revenge in the same way Scar did. He's fighting to restore balance, to reclaim his home, and to honor his father's legacy. The final confrontation on Pride Rock is spectacular. It's a clash of ideologies. Scar, desperate and cornered, tries his old trick: manipulation. He once again blames Simba for Mufasa's death, turning the pride against him. But this time Simba is different. He accepts responsibility, not out of guilt, but out of honesty. This act of humility is a sign of a true king. The tide turns when Scar, in his arrogance, whispers the truth to Simba, believing he has him cornered. "I killed Mufasa." That confession unleashes the lion's fury. But more importantly, it liberates Simba from the guilt that has haunted him for years. In the end, Scar is not defeated by Simba's strength alone, but by his own lies and betrayals. When he tries to blame the hyenas, he seals his fate. The allies he empowered, the very ones he used to seize the throne, are the ones who ultimately consume him. It's a perfect, poetic end for a character who built his entire life on deception and exploitation. He reaped what he sowed. With Scar gone, Simba takes his rightful place as king. The rain falls, washing away the decay of Scar's reign and symbolizing a baptism for the land and its new ruler. But Simba is not the same lion he would have been had he inherited the throne as a cub. His journey through the wilderness, his Hakuna Matata phase, and his confrontation with his past have made him a wiser, more compassionate leader. He understands loss and suffering. He has learned that true kingship isn't about getting what you want. It's about upholding the circle of life for everyone. The legacy of Simba and Scar is a powerful narrative about leadership. Scar represents leadership born from envy and entitlement, a rule that takes and consumes until nothing is left. Simba represents leadership forged through hardship and self-discovery, a rule that understands balance and responsibility. Their story teaches us that true strength isn't just about power, but about the wisdom to use it for the good of all. It's about facing your past, embracing your identity, and finding your place in the great. Beautiful is constantly living in his brother's shadow, a shadow that stretched over the entire Pride Lands. It's said that he got his scar during a failed attempt to prove his worth, a painful, permanent reminder of his perceived inadequacy. When he renamed himself Scar, it wasn't just a name change, it was a declaration. He was embracing the pain and bitterness that had defined his life. He was no longer Taka, the unwanted one. He was Scar, a being forged in resentment. This doesn't excuse his actions, of course. Murder and tyranny are unforgivable, but it does add a layer of tragic complexity. Scar's evil wasn't born out of thin air. It was cultivated over years of feeling invisible and undervalued. He believed the throne was his right, a way to finally prove his superiority over the brother who had everything. His plan to kill Mufasa and Simba wasn't just a power grab. For him, it was the ultimate act of vengeance against a world and a family that he felt had wronged him from birth. Now, let's fast forward. Mufasa is gone, and Scar's reign begins. He promises a new era where the hyenas are integrated and the old rules no longer apply. On the surface, it sounds revolutionary, almost progressive, but his leadership is driven by that same deep-seated insecurity and hunger for validation. He doesn't rule with wisdom like Mufasa. He rules with an iron fist, fueled by paranoia. He is so desperate to keep the power he stole that he ends up destroying the very kingdom he wanted to rule. The pride lands wither, the food disappears, and the circle of life is broken. Scar's reign is a perfect illustration of how leadership born from bitterness and trauma ultimately leads to ruin. He got the crown, but he never truly became king. Meanwhile, far away in the jungle, Simba is growing up. He's living a carefree life of Hakuna Matata, actively trying to forget his past. But you can't outrun trauma. Simba isn't just avoiding his responsibilities. He's running from the immense guilt he feels over his father's death. Scar masterfully manipulated him into believing it was his fault. This lie becomes the defining wound of Simba's life. It shapes him into a prince who shirks his duty, who is terrified of facing his own reflection because he sees a failure, a coward. Think about it. Both Simba and Scar are profoundly shaped by Mufasa's death. For Scar, it's the culmination of his life's ambition, the act that puts him on the throne. For Simba, it's the source of his deepest shame, the event that drives him into exile. They're two sides of the same tragic coin, both their lives rerouted by that single moment in the gorge. Their forgotten legacy isn't just about the throne. It's about how they each deal with the shadow Mufasa left behind. When Nala finds Simba, she doesn't just ask him to come back. She forces him to confront the person he has become. He's no longer the brave, curious cub. He's an adult living in denial. The journey back to the Pride Lands is more than just a physical trip. It's a journey inward, Rafiki's famous lesson. The past can hurt, but you can either run from it or learn from it, is the turning point. Simba has to stop running. He has to accept what happened and understand his true place in the circle of life. The final confrontation between Simba and Scar is electric, not just because it's a physical battle for the kingdom, but because it's a clash of these two broken legacies. When Simba pins Scar in the exact same way Scar pinned him as a cub, it's a powerful moment of reversal. But the real climax is when Scar, desperate and cornered, reveals the truth. I killed Mufasa. In that moment, everything changes. The guilt that has weighed Simba down for years is lifted. It wasn't his fault. That revelation unleashes a righteous fury in Simba, not just for his father's murder, but for the years of lies and manipulation that stole his youth and his identity. He's no longer fighting as a guilty coward. He's fighting as the rightful king, avenging his father and reclaiming his destiny. And this is where their legacies truly diverge. Scar, even at the very end, is ruled by his own self. He blames the hyenas, trying to save his own skin. His entire life has been about himself, and he dies as he lived, alone and betrayed by those he used. Simba, on the other hand, learns from his past. He accepts his responsibility. When he takes the throne, he doesn't rule with an iron fist. He restores the balance. He heals the land that Scar's bitterness had poisoned. The forgotten legacy of Simba and Scar is this powerful cycle of trauma and recovery. Scar let his pain and resentment consume him, and it led to the destruction of everything he touched. Simba, though he ran from his pain for years, eventually confronted it. He learned from it and used it to become a wise and compassionate leader, arguably even greater than his father, because he had experienced loss and failure. Simba's reign isn't just a continuation of Mufasa, it's a new chapter, one that acknowledges the darkness and chooses the light. He understands the fragility of peace, because he has seen what happens when it's lost. He understands the importance of truth, because he lived a life built on a lie. This is the true meaning of the circle of life. It's not just about birth and death. It's about learning, growing, and healing from the wounds of the past to create a better future. The shadow of the throne touched both Scar and Simba, but while one was consumed by it, the other learned to step out of it and into the sun. What do you guys think? Does this change how you see Scar and Simba? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. It's a story with so much depth, and I love exploring these different layers with you all. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Tragic fan theories. in the entire Disney universe. The story of Uru, the forgotten queen, and her fury against Mufasa. To understand this theory, we have to go back to the source material that inspired The Lion King. Disney's own book series, The Lion King, 6 New Adventures, gives us a glimpse into the family tree. It reveals that Mufasa and Scar's father was King Ahadi. But who was their mother? The book's name, Haru. And that's where the official story ends, and the fan theories begin, weaving a narrative so powerful it feels like it could be canon. So, who was Uru? According to the most popular theories, Uru wasn't just any lioness. She was the formidable leader of her own pride, the Endona Pride, a group known for their strength and resilience. She was a queen in her own right before she ever met Ahadi. Their union wasn't just a romance, it was a political alliance, a merger of 2 powerful prides to strengthen the kingdom and secure the future of the Pride Lands. This makes Uru a figure of immense power and importance, not just a king's consort. Ahadi and Uru had 2 sons. The firstborn was Mufasa, golden-furred, strong, and every bit the heir his father envisioned. He was the son, bright and celebrated. Then came their second son, Taka. Unlike his brother, Taka was smaller, darker, and bore a striking resemblance to his mother, Uru. From the very beginning, the differences between the 2 brothers were stark, and King Ahadi, it is said, showed a clear preference for his golden son. Mufasa, this is where the tragedy starts to unfold. The theory suggests that Ahadi, obsessed with a strong, traditional heir, began to neglect and sidelion Taka. He saw Mufasa as the future, and Taka as little more than a spare. An afterthought, every achievement of Mufasa was praised, while Taka's own strengths were overlooked. Imagine being a child constantly living in the shadow of your perfect older brother, with a father who barely acknowledges your existence. This constant neglect would fester, turning into resentment and a desperate need for validation. But where was Uru in all of this? She saw what was happening. She saw her younger son, the one who looked just like her, being emotionally cast aside by his own father. She tried to intervene, to remind Ahadi that both their sons were precious. But Ahadi, stubborn and set in his ways, wouldn't listen. Uru found herself caught in an impossible position, trying to protect Taka's spirit while maintaining the peace of the kingdom and her marriage. She would shower Taka with the love and attention his father denied him, nurturing his intelligence and cunning, the very traits that would later define him as Scar. Now, let's talk about the name. Taka in Swahili means dirt or trash. It's a cruel name for a prince, or perhaps it was a nickname given by others that stuck. Either way, it was a constant, painful reminder of his perceived worthlessness in his father's eyes. The breaking point, the moment that sealed Taka's dark fate, was the incident that gave him his scar. One popular version says Taka, tired of being called weak, was goaded by a trio of hyenas into trying to provoke a Cape buffalo. He believed that if he could face down the buffalo, his father would finally see his strength. But the plan went horribly wrong. The buffalo, enraged, charged, and struck Taka, leaving a deep, permanent gash over his eye. Mufasa, who had followed his brother, arrived just in time to save him. He was hailed as a hero. But Taka was left with a physical scar and an even deeper emotional one. When King Ahadi saw his injured son, he wasn't filled with fatherly concern. Instead, he was furious. He scolded Taka for his recklessness and foolishness, seeing the incident not as a cry for help, but as another failure. It was in this moment of pain and rejection, with his face bleeding and his father's angry words echoing in his ears, that Taka renounced his name. From that day forward, he would be known only by his mark of shame and defiance, Scar. This is where Uru's fury truly ignites. She had watched her son be neglected. She had seen his spirit cry. Her focus shifted entirely to protecting the son the kingdom had rejected. He represented the injustice that had broken her younger son. Was Mufasa intentionally cruel? Probably not. As a child, he likely enjoyed the attention and didn't fully grasp the damage it was doing to his brother. But in Uru's eyes, Mufasa was a symbol of the system that had failed her family. Uru secretly mentored Scar, whispering that he was just as worthy as his brother, that he too had a right to power. This creates a fascinating and tragic dynamic. Uru's love, twisted by grief and anger, may have inadvertently paved the way for Scar's villainy. In trying to build him up, did she fuel his ambition and paranoia? In validating his anger, did she justify his future betrayal? It paints a picture, not of a simple good versus evil story, but of a complex family tragedy, where love and protection curdle into something much darker. Imagine the tension and pride rock during these years. Uru's fury would have been a quiet, simmering rage, a queen fighting a silent war for her forgotten son. When King Ahadi and Queen Uru eventually passed away, Mufasa ascended the throne, as was his destiny. For Scar, this was the ultimate defeat. The system his mother had raged against had won, and with Uru gone, Scar lost his only protector, his only confidant. He was truly alone, left with nothing but his scar, his sharp mind, and the burning resentment his mother had understood so well. This theory completely reframes Scar's motivations. He's no longer just a one-dimensional villain driven by simple jealousy. It's a twisted act of vengeance against the brother who had everything, a fury he inherited and carried with him his entire life. It's the voice of Taka, the boy who was told he was worthless. When he manipulates Simba, he's using the cunning intellect his mother nurtured in him. And when he finally throws Mufasa from the cliff, it's not just Scar taking the throne. It's the ghost of Queen Uru finally getting a revenge. This theory adds an incredible layer of Shakespearean tragedy to The Lion King. It gives us Uru, the furious queen, a character whose love and pain echo through the generations, ultimately leading to the downfall of the very kingdom she helped build. It doesn't excuse Scar's actions, but it makes them terrifyingly understandable. It reminds us that villains aren't always born. They're often made, forged in the fires of family conflict and injustice. The story of the Lion King is not just Scar's story. It's also the story of his mother's rage.